I really believe as a leader, someone who wants to be a leader, you set the tone by the way you live your life. You set the tone for your people, the way you carry yourself, your personality, your attitude, your enthusiasm. Nothing, as Ralph Waldo Emerson said one time, nothing is ever achieved without enthusiasm, and how true that is.
Welcome to another Coaching You podcast with the coach, Brendan Sir, presented by Noah Basketball. Last week I had really one of the big thrills of my life. One of the people that gave me my start in coaching back when I was 21 years old, the Hall of Famer Dick Vitale, had his yearly Dick Vitale Gala in Sarasota, Florida. It was his 20th anniversary of that incredible event, where he exceeded last week for the career of that event, probably over $110 million. I've known Dick since I was a high school player, and he was a high school coach in New Jersey. He was a tremendous state championship coach. UB Brown was my coach in the summers when I was in college. Myself, Mike Fratello, Richie Adubato, who's an NBA coach later on, we would go and work at Dick's 2 weeks of day camp, teaching young kids how to play. And he was just someone that when I finished playing in college, before I even graduated, just through relationship, he offered me a job when he became the head coach at the University of Detroit. Neither one of us had ever been to the state of Michigan, let alone Detroit. And that was when major colleges had a head coach and two assistants. A little different from the size of coaching staffs now. But I'll tell you what, it was, he's one of the great people that gave me a shot, taught me what it took, how hard you have to work, how relationships are so important. But he taught me how it was so important to serve others as a human being, forget coaching. I learned from Dick when he was a high school coach. He took a young black kid from New Jersey, had gotten hit by a train and lost both of his legs. Young man, Sammy Davis, was under 12 years of age, I think. And Dick, a high school coach, convinced 24 NBA players on an August night to come and play in a high school gym in Clifton, New Jersey. They raised thousands of dollars for this young kid who had lost his life, his dreams, of everything. And here came Willis Reed, Earl Monroe, Walt Frazier, the greats of the day back then in their early 70s. They came. They didn't even know who Dick was. They came because of a cause. Fast forward to time we were together, Dick became a great coach at the University of Detroit, took his team to the NCAA tournament very quickly, then became an NBA coach with the Detroit Pistons. After 6 years of college coaching, I went to the NBA with the Atlanta Hawks with UB Brown and Mike Fratello. And in the 12th game of my NBA coaching career, UB Brown, Fratello, and I, two assistants on the squad back then, were playing against Dick Vitale's Pistons in the Silverdome in Detroit. And after the game, we beat him by a couple of points, and they fired Dickie V. They fired him after 12 games. He was distraught, terribly depressed, and literally sat at home for a month, the whole month of November, with nothing to do, driving his superstar saint for a wife, Lorraine, crazy. And all of a sudden, this fella from ESPN which had just literally come on the air, starting out first year, calls and says, "Hey, do you want to broadcast our games?" This is, 1979. And I think he might have told me he either got $250 or $500 to broadcast the game. And the thing that was amazing is all of a sudden, as this young network is starting out, this guy catches fire and turns college basketball into something that's amazing because he knows all the coaches. He breathes enthusiasm into the game. And overnight, he becomes a broadcast sensation. And really was the reason that college basketball grew so much was because of Dick Vitale. And fast forward after this incredible career now at ESPN, of which, from 79 to 2025, he's now, on that original Mount Rushmore of ESPN employees, their Hall of Fame. And, I think what he's done is just really been, just one disappointment in life of losing your coaching thing turned into an incredible blessing. 20 years ago, however, he started to, when his close friend, all of our friends, Jim Valvano, passed away from cancer, Dickie V, along with Mike Krzyzewski, Coach K, started, along with the V Foundation and ESPN, raised money to try to fight and beat cancer, with 100% of the money going to research. Fast forward right now, in 20 years, the dinner I went to last Friday, a week ago Friday, in Sarasota, Florida, surpassed $100 million. But knowing Dick as I do, he's one of the greatest speakers of all time, a really excellent coach, and by far one of the great, basketball analysts of all time. A worldwide figure. Everyone in sports knows who Dickie V is. His greatest legacy, however, happens to be what he's done for others less fortunate. So let me take you behind the scenes of being in the Ritz-Carlton in Sarasota on May 2nd, Friday night. We're in there, 1,200 people at $1,000 a plate, just there to give, to help others. And some of the biggest people in business, in medicine, in television, and in sports are in that room. That day we were honoring John Calipari, Michael Strahan, Danny Hurley, Grant Hill, Hannah Storm, Nancy Lieberman. All these people were there. You could feel the energy of people in this time of kind of a little chaotic world. Here was Dickie V uniting us to forget about everything else that was going on and just focus on how can we help others. The next night, I got to go to his house with about 150 VIPs, celebrities, and sponsors, donors, to his house, which is spectacular. And what you saw there at his home was the love that was pouring out for a guy who's really struggling. He's had 4 or 5 bouts of cancer now himself. But he all he does is he keeps teaching, he keeps motivating, telling us never ever to give up. And that's what I love about him. I think his legacy, his impact is not what he's done in the sports world or the corporate world as one of the top motivational speakers in the world. It's frankly what he's done to help people in the area of cancer and fighting it, along with the V Foundation. So I wanted to share with you, and I walked out of there after 2 nights there, so inspired about what can I do more. And so I want you to really think about, if you don't have a charity to give to, they actually did this at the dinner. They actually said, if you have had cancer, stand up. A few folks stand up. If someone in your family has had it, please stand up. A lot of people started to stand up. If you have a friend that has ever had cancer, the next thing you know, there's 1,100 people standing. And there are tears throughout that room. What happens is that we all know someone that has cancer. So I highly recommend that you give anything you can to the V Foundation, because 100% of it is going to fight and for the cure of this. And really, every dollar goes to research. And I just think that it's one of the things, when I wrote a book on Chuck Daly coaching you after he passed from pancreatic cancer, I self-published a book, and every dime I made from the book, I gave it to the V Foundation. Not to be special, but I appreciated what Chuck had done for me, how he never thought when he retired that he was going to get sick. He waited his whole life to retire. 3 months later, he was dead. Okay, so I just think it's so important. Please think about this. When we're after a quick break, a quick time out from our sponsors who assist us in everything we do at Coaching You, I'm going to take you to a conversation I had with Dick that I think will really exemplify how he is able to communicate, connect with humans at all level, from players to coaches to cancer victims. His big thing now is pediatric cancer. And I think you'll really find out what an amazing guy. This conversation I had with him is one of the best things I've ever done. And I thought it was appropriate, going through what he's going through now, to share this with you, because I think it's really going to be special. So after that, I think, we'll come back and we'll wrap up. But I think it's going to be a real treat for you today. Noah Basketball is our new presenting sponsor of our Coaching You podcast. Noah Basketball is a shot tracking and data company that has helped change how coaches and players perfect the game's most important skill, shooting. Noah is a data service provider that uses machine learning and the latest computer vision technology to provide real-time data and feedback to improve shooting accuracy and consistency for professional and amateur basketball players. Noah has now analyzed over 570 million shots from countless high school, hundreds of college teams, and 28 NBA franchises. The technology is simply amazing. Once the system has been installed, players will be able to get immediate feedback on their shooting arc, left and right positioning, depth, makes or misses, and makes the data available to players and coaches on your mobile device. For more information about how Noah can help your team, visit noahbasketball.com. Coaches, are you looking to take your game preparation to the next level? Then Fast Model Sports is the perfect coaching software for you. With FastDraw, build an organized library of plays and drills and create professional playbooks to share with your players and staff. You can also download over 9,500 free plays and drills from our playbank directly to your FastDraw account. Looking for a better way to build your scouting reports and want to include video? With FastScout, build custom scouting report templates to prepare your team best for each individual opponent. Plus, did you know with the latest updates from Fast Model Sports, you can now include video with your FastScout reports and share with your coaches and staff, all within the FastScout mobile app. The combination of FastDraw and FastScout is by far the best way for you and your coaches to create winning game strategies and effectively communicate them to your team. Over 10,000 high school and youth coaches trust Fast Model Sports products to help their teams reach their goals. To order, go to fastmodelsports.com. Use code COACHINGU15 to get 15% off any FastDraw or FastScout products. Remember, go to fastmodelsports.com. Use code COACHINGU15 to get 15% off any FastDraw and FastScout products. I'd like to welcome Dick Vitale as our guest today. Coach, Thank you for doing this.
Well, no problem at all, Brendan. You and I go back a long, long way, man. Fairlawn, New Jersey. I was down there in East Rutherford. You came with me as an assistant coach down at the University of Detroit. So it's a pleasure being on.
The reason I say coach is, as you mentioned, you gave me my first job in coaching, 21 years old. We went to Detroit together. Neither one of us knew what the hell we were doing, where we were going. Now, for the last 30 or 35 years, now your audience is corporate people. And I think, in my opinion, you're one of the very best motivational speakers in the world. What messages, when you talk to different, whether it be kids or corporate leaders, what's your messages?
You know, Brandon, I love doing it. I've been doing loads of motivational seminars. I'm with the Washington Speakers Bureau now for 3 decades, and they book me all over the place. And my message is very simple. If you have pride about yourself and you have passion about what you're going to do, you're going to be a success. You have to have a love of what you're doing. If you don't have a love of what you're doing, you're going to really struggle. And I think that is the key. I always try to break pride down very simply. P for perseverance, R for respect, I for intelligence, D for desire, and E for enthusiasm. And I'm not talking about intelligence in terms of book intelligence. I'm talking about making good decisions. Unfortunately, Brendan, you and I know a lot of people are very talented people, yet they can't make an intelligent decision about drugs, alcohol, things that can affect you in a big way. So I try to stress that. And I really believe as a leader, someone who wants to be a leader, you set the tone by the way you live your life. You set the tone for your people, the way you carry yourself, you know, your personality, your attitude, your enthusiasm. Nothing, as Ralph Waldo Emerson said one time, nothing is ever achieved without enthusiasm, and how true that is.
You know, you get to go around and not just in the corporate world, but in the sports world, and you see so many great leaders. What are the characteristics of a great leader?
You know, I think when you talk about a great leader, somebody that commands respect. Well, the question is, how do they get that respect? They get that respect by the way they carry themselves. Communication, the art of communicating, the ability to communicate with people with a positive approach. I always love people that look at the glass half filled, not half empty. There's too much negativity in our world. I think there's one thing that exists now in our world. There's too much hate, not enough love among people. So I want a leader that's going to be exuberant, somebody that's going to have that enthusiasm, that energy, somebody that's going to delegate responsibility to his people and let them go out and achieve success in what they want to do. I mean, if you want to achieve success in life, you got to achieve it by doing what is right. You know, there's a saying, I always talk about this. Somebody, if I ask them, I'll say, what are your goals? Oh, my goal is I want to be a doctor. Oh, my goal is I want to be a lawyer. Or my goal is I want to be a head coach. My goal is I want to be the best teacher in the world. I want to be the best corporate leader in the world. My next question would be very simple. Very simple. What is your plan to make the commitment a reality? Telling me your goal is one thing, but what's the plan? Give me the plan of attack. What are you going to do to make that happen? You know, my dream, and you grew up as a young guy in our area, was to be a college coach. I was no big name. I was a high school coach chasing a dream. But I had a plan. My plan was, at one time, a lot of people don't know this, I coached 3 sports in junior high: baseball, basketball, football. Didn't know anything about football. I was telling Bob Stoops the other day at a big banquet I spoke at, the former coach in Oklahoma. I said, Stoops, you're in the crowd here. You had a great record. I had a better record than you, Bob. I didn't lose a game for 2 years. And you know what? I knew nothing about wing tees, split tees. I knew nothing about that. I used to tell my team, I know one thing. If they get 6, we better get 7. And somehow we got 7. But the bottom line is, I had a plan, and my plan was, and you'll know the name, I used to go to the gym and sit and watch Dick Hollup at Fairleigh Dickinson University.
Lived across the street from me in Fairlawn.
Oh, he did?
Yep.
But I watched practice. A lot of people don't know that. I went to clinics galore. I saw Bob Knight as a young coach mesmerize me at West. He was a West Point coach at the time. I think he might have been 24, 25. Right. I'd go to clinics, listen to Corner Sectors and all these great coaches, Coach Wooden. And I'd sit there and take notes and learn as much as I can, because I realized in my career, you can't get ahead to be a college coach like I wanted to be if you're going to baseball, because I wasn't a former major leaguer or a minor leaguer. Usually those guys are lifetime former baseball players. I wasn't. Number two, I couldn't go football because I didn't have the technical background. I didn't play football. And I can motivate all I want, but the bottom line is you got to have some technique background, teaching all the principles of the game. But basketball, and doing my research, I found out that you could be a guy that wasn't a former great player and move up the ladder. And that's what started me. I went and I just lived it. I ate, slept, and drank. I will never forget, you get a kick out of this story. We were talking 2 years ago, they honored me in New Jersey. A lot of my former guys I coached with there, people were there. And I told the story, they were all laughing because some of the guys were in my class, remember the story. I'm sitting in the back of the room. I'm a fanatical baseball fan, fanatical sports fan. We had a writer, you probably know the name, Daily News. He wrote a column, Dick Young. Dick Young was
Legend.
a genius. He would dot column all about baseball. So I'd sit in the back of the room in his business class. Miss Zonka was our teacher. I'm back there, I got the paper. And I'm proud of this, so kids don't do what I did. I got the paper and I'm reading the column. One day she comes sprinting into the back, grabs the paper on my head, rips it up. Richie, it was never Dick. Richie, you're ruining your whole life. What are you doing? You got a brain and all you do is stupid sports. Where's this going to take you? Oh, if Lucy could see my house now, Lucy could see the light. She could see what sports did. But I got lucky. I got blessed and lucky, but I had a passion for it. I think I had writers in Detroit tell me, they say, people talk about your enthusiasm on TV and your energy. Remember Michael Harrer, when I ran into Michael Harrer, covered us?
Love him, yeah.
Mike says to me, I tell people, are you kidding me? You should have seen him when he was here. He said, that's the same guy. I try to be myself, and I've been this way all my life.
One of the things that I think everyone thinks that you grew up and you were in sensation that you are now. But when we went to Detroit, I couldn't believe I was even going to get a salary, but I got $9,000. I was so excited. I said, man, this is great. And I think you were about 17,000 or so for the head coaching job. And you worked harder than any person I've ever seen in my life, with an incredible passion. And then you decided to stop and you went into the NBA to coach. And then for someone that was incredibly successful, all of a sudden, what happens to every coach, you get fired. But you didn't say, okay, that's it, I'm done. How does someone pick up when something bad goes on?
That's a great point. You have two choices in life, and I'll be very honest with you. And I recently got into the National Sportscasting Hall of Fame, and I shared this in my speech with the people there. I shared what you just basically mentioned. I said I was as down as can be. Right. A lot of people don't know that I was so depressed because my career was exploding. 1970, Brendan, I'm teaching the 6th grade, coaching high school at East Rutherford. Get lucky, we have a great player, Leslie K's son. He's up in heaven now, God bless him, made a major mistake in his life concerning drugs, etc. Crushes me. Probably my biggest failure in my life that I feel, and I worked so hard to try and do the right things, but I couldn't somehow reach him, that he went off the wrong tracks and wrong side of town, and breaks my heart. But anyway, it's one of my failures. We all have failures. But the bottom line is, I exploded. 76th grade, coaching in high school. Then all of a sudden, Rutgers assistant coach. I get a job at Rutgers in 1971, and I'll never forget my first meeting with our coaching staff. They gave me a bunch of names to recruit. I said, fellas, who are we going to beat? Who are we going to beat? Some of these local colleges? I want to beat Kentucky. I want to beat Carolina. I want to beat Dukes. I want to play the best. They looked at me like, you're out of your mind. We're Rutgers. I said to them very simply, well, let me tell you this. If you think you're mediocre, you'll be mediocre. I'm going to go after the best. They said, we don't have the budgets. What do you want to do? I said, I don't need budget. I get in a car and drive. But I'm going to Brooklyn, New York, and I'm going to go after a kid named Phil Sellers. He's the best in the nation right now. And I'm going to go after Mike Dabney, number 1 in New Jersey. Well,
he started.
They basically, didn't think it was possible, but we got the job done. And I worked for a great guy. Dick Lloyd was as good. He gave me, we talked about leaders before. He delegates. Dick, if you want to do that, do it. I'm not going to stop you. Do it, but just realize our budget is what it is. And I said, yeah, I understand that. But he delegated responsibility so well. Dick, he came to my Hall of Fame when I got into it in basketball, and I introduced him and Howard Garfinkel, because they both played a big role. Howard Garfinkel, this is amazing, he heard me speak at a high school banquet. Came up to me, I didn't know Howard at the time. He came up to me after the banquet and he said, you belong in college. I said, oh, really? That's nice of you saying that. I said, I got more rejections, as Howard used to always talk, more rejections than the dean of Harvard gives out. I was writing all these schools. Can I be a grad assistant? Can I do it? I couldn't get in the door. He said, I'm going to get you in the door. So one day I get a call from Dick Lloyd to come in to be interviewed at Rutgers. How would you like to get interviewed and get told this? Most likely, I'm going to be very honest with you, you got no shot to get the job, because I've already interviewed 6 people. I've already interviewed 6 people, and I've already told Howard Garfinkel. I told Howard right up and down. I said, Howard, he says, Howard, let me tell you this. I'll interview Dick Vitale out of respect for you, but I want you to know that somebody calling me, hey, tell him to wait, we're doing an interview with my buddy.
This is a big
This is a big interview, and you're going to bother. And I'm like, gee whiz. Anyway, so I get told by Dick that I have really no chance. He's only interviewing me because of respect to Howard, to give me some experience. So I never even had been interviewed. So Howard says, go down there. And then Howard said, I told him if he interviews you, he's going to hire you. So I go down there. I'm being interviewed. After about an hour and a half being interviewed, he said to me, I'd like you to come meet my family, my wife and my kids, and I'm home, and I did, and my head begins to spin now. Why would he want me to do that if he didn't want me? So I drive all the way back from Rutgers, about an hour and a half, get back home to North Jersey. I come in, I'm excited. I tell my wife, I said, man, I'm not going to get hired, but it was just a great thrill to be interviewed like that. I really enjoyed it. I think he liked me. No sooner I said that, the phone rings. He says, Dick, this is Dick Lloyd. I wanted to give you enough time to get home. He said, I'm not going to waste time. Howard Garfinkel was right. I want to hire you right now. Oh my God. I mean, Brendan, I start crying. I was so excited. I didn't know what I was getting paid. We go out for dinner, my wife and I. As we go to dinner, only a wife can do this to you. She says to me, what are you getting paid? I said, well, I think I was making at the time $12,000 with summer camp, with teaching, with master's degree, the whole bit. And I said, I'm sure this is 25. Geez, college. So I said, well, let me call him up and ask him. There's no cell phones. I'd run to the payphone at the restaurant, call him up. I said, Dick, I used this in my speech, and he was going crazy in the crowd. I said, Dick, what am I getting paid? He said, how much you making? I said, $12,000. He said, that's great. You're only going to take $1,000 cut. I said, so that was my entry. It was never for money. I tell people, don't chase money. Chase your dreams. Right. Because if you do it, the money will come. Yeah. The money will happen. It will happen. And then, so in 70, I'm 6th grade. Then I'm coaching at Rutgers assistant. And then 3-4 years later, I'm getting a job offer, University of Detroit. And as you know, I became the youngest, a lot of people don't know this, I became the youngest head coach, athletic director in the country when UD was getting feelers that I may be, some other schools might be interested, and they gave me that as a motivational thing to get me excited. They made me both. And then the Pistons came, and my career went in 7 years from the 6th grade to the NBA. And then you get fired. And you sit there. People, my wife used to always say to me, it was a great learning experience, and now I look at it. At the time, I didn't think so. Right. But it's a great, failure is part of being a success. How you handle, as you asked, how do you handle failure? You can, one, feel sorry for yourself, pout and sulk about it, or you can pick up the pieces and say, you know what? I'm pretty good. I'm thankful to my wife. We've been married 47 years. I'll never forget that moment at my house when I got a phone call from a gentleman. He said, Dick, I'm the new head of a network in terms of remotes, and I'd like you to do our very first game, ESPN. I said, ESPN? Sounds like a disease. What is ESPN? I said, but I'm not interested. I said, I want to get back where I belong. College coaching, my enthusiasm and energy. Lucky for me, he called me back 8 days later, and my wife practically threw me out of the house. She said, why are you sitting here? I was watching Luke and Laura at General Hospital. I was so depressed.
Good show.
I was so depressed. She says to me, you got to go out and go there, have fun. You're not the first guy to be fired, and you're not the last guy to be fired. Go. And Mr. Davidson, I have to say this, he didn't want to fire me. Mr. Davidson was as good as an owner as you can have. Well, you worked for him, did you
Absolutely
not?
right.
Yeah, he was as good as an owner, and he would say to me, and I'd complain, I'd say, I could coach till I'm blue in the face. We can't beat Dr. J. Moses and Sixers. We can't beat Kareem and those guys. We can't do it. It's impossible. And he'd say, patience. You know, he's very low-keyed. He would say, patience. It's going to take 5 years. We know that. You're your biggest enemy.
Right.
And I was, because I was never used to it, Brendan. I couldn't handle losing. Losing tore my insides to shred. I firmly believe, and I tell people this, and I'm sincere, and you would know probably more than most people because you were with me in losing. And bottom line is, if I stayed in coaching, I'm dead by 50. I'm dead by 50. I'm serious. I couldn't handle it. It tore me. I mean, losing 6 games in a week or 5 games in a week was brutal. Was brutal. You know, I'm used to high school, 35-0, 31-1 or whatever it is. In college, you go 25-3. NBA, bam, bam, bam. It's like you're Shock City.
The thing that I love about you is you keep learning and you keep teaching, and that's such a great gift. Thank you for doing that.
To me in life, affecting other people's lives, isn't that really such a high? If you can bring a smile and lend a hand to somebody that needs a helping hand, that's what life's been. I've lived a life. I used to have I lived in Jersey, we had 1 bathroom in a house, and now I live a life because ESPN's been so good to me. People have been so good to me, and you know. But this has never changed. You know, I told my daughters, I told my wife, I told my family. You know, materialistically, financially, things have changed. But if my values ever change and my beliefs smack me across the head, because I don't want that ever to change. I want to live my mother and father's doctrine. My parents had 2 things that I shared all the time in my books with people. 1, never ever believe in can't. When I lost my eye as a kid, my mother told me, Richie, you can be what you want to be. Don't let that get you down. People have it worse. It's pretty tough. You know, I remember a time I was very depressed going through that. You know, gee whiz, my eye. Then, number 2, she always used to teach me, and my father would say at my dinner table, be good to people. If you're good to people, people are going to be good to you. Mm-hmm. Brendan, I say this all the time when I speak, and people laugh at it. It's so true. I'm in 14 Hall of Fames. I'm a Hall of Fame in college where I coached, Hall of Fame in high school where I coached, Hall of Fame where I grew up as a kid, the Italian Hall of Fame, and as you see the Hall of Fame jersey up there, number 8, a Hall of Fame in Springfield at Naismith, the Hall of Fame broadcasting. I'm there. I cannot run, I cannot jump, I cannot shoot, and I got a body by Linguini. But I'm there because 2 words in my life that have been with me from the day one: passion and pride. Having a lot of passion on what I did and pride about what I do.
Wow. I'm speechless, which doesn't happen often, but you've inspired me continually. But you showed me, after you started me in my career, you showed me how if you ever do make it, and I'm not saying I have, I'm just starting, that you better start making sure you take care of other people. So thank you so much for that.
Well, I appreciate that so much, and I certainly wish you all the luck in the world and whatever you do. I know you've always attacked things with the best of your ability, and that's all one can do. I was always like you growing up in New Jersey, a boy, a ball, a dream. Got your ball, got your dreams, and hope your goals, and hope they happen. Doesn't mean you're always going to come to the winner's circle. You're going to get some bruises. You're going to get some bumps. Handle those bumps and bruises, and understand you can turn them to success.
I know you enjoyed that. When I was watching it today before Zach and I decided what to do to honor Dick and the V Foundation, as I watched that, I said, my God, he was so good. He was just tremendous. You talk about he's in 14 different, I think, Hall of Fames, but the biggest one he's in is the Hall of Fame of Life. So again, I wanted to share that. A great treat, I think, for everyone to hear and kind of be coached up by Dickie V. Also, I want to remind all of our friends and listeners and coaches that, remember, we're now on to our registration for Coaching You Live Las Vegas, July 12 and 13. It's going to be a lineup. We're putting together some of the best speakers we've ever had. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Go to coachingyoulive.com /2025. Register, and I think you're really going to love it. For those of you that are into your summer study, make sure, off-season study, I'm sorry. Again, go to coachingyouplus.com, and again, get our app. It is absolutely, we're now after the Birmingham clinic, we're way over 500 different coaches, lectures, and stuff like that for you to get better. Plus our podcasts are in there and other things, but it's a treat. It is truly going to the university to improve, and for just an incredibly inexpensive amount each and every month. Pay by the year, save a couple months on that. But until next week, this is the coach, Brendan Sir.